killer device? It's a question that, as tech journalists, we seem to always be asking ourselves. Certainly our audiences are asking us those questions on a regular basis. So the next new greatest thing in consumer tech, what might it be? A product, a service, an app? Who knows? Some believe that it has yet to be invented or even thought of. Many think it may be just around the corner, but others still feel that everything available in our lifetime is already here. And manufacturers will simply build in more features to devices we already have. So we're going to want to know, what do you think after we hear what our panelists think? Let me introduce them from your left to right. First of all, editorial writer with Nikkei is Wachi Sekiguchi. Next to him is the CEO of Gravis, that's Archibald Horlitz. Commentator with CNET and their parent company, CBS, is Larry Magid. And the chief editor for UTech is Paolo Paglianti, a local boy.
So when we look back at consumer electronics, we're talking about roughly 1 century. It all started, to my knowledge, with the invention of the radio, shortly followed by television, and most devices were analog at that point of time. Today, everything we are talking about is digital. Besides being digital, more and more devices are equipped to be connected to the internet, and therefore based on the internet protocol. The first wave of consumer electronic devices were built to consume audio and TV or video content at home. Then mobility was a factor of innovation, leading to car audio and portable devices like portable TVs, radios, and of course the Walkman. The smartphone and pad have become the super devices in the consumer electronic space, because they can combine a large amount of functionality of formerly standalone consumer electronic devices like GPS receivers, mobile phones, geologgers, digital camera, radio receiver, video camera, TV receivers, remote control, pocket computer, pocket calculator, ebook reader, alarm clock, and so on and so on. Together with app-based hardware devices, smartphones and pads can go even further, measuring blood pressure, blood sugar, or even making an electrocardiogram. This all shows that we are moving into an integrated digital world where consumer electronic devices do not live on its own, but are important, if not the most important part, of an environment which is created by integrating hardware, software, and services. The cloud is becoming more and more the foundation of those services. What's the future of consumer electronics? Consumer electronic devices are getting smarter all the way. A good example is smart TV. Enriched by apps and services, today's TV sets are fundamentally different from what we have seen a couple of years ago. We have the problem that we have screens here on one hand that last 5 to 7 years, and that's a typical average you expect to use your TV set, but the underlying technology like processors change at a much faster pace. This puts the user in an awkward position. Buy a new TV set every 2 or 3 years, or settle on old standards and get cut off new developments. So what's the solution? Make TVs really upgradable and forget about integration and offer a monitor with separate electronics is one way to go. Expect new standards for tuneless transmission standards like DVB-T3, DVB-S3, and an increasing acceptance of 3D TV. All that will demand new components within the next 2 years. Besides the super CE devices, smartphones and pads, to stress that again, the TV will remain a central unit in our digital world. Even consumer durables or white goods will become more and more intelligent, going the way TV did towards going to a smart TV. Interfaced with the internet, those devices will create an own class that will fall between classic consumer electronic devices and new consumer durable devices. Lessons to be learned from the TV industry that these new devices should be upgradable to new standards. When I thought about what could be a kind of killer device or killer solution, one thing came to my mind, and that's what is called the Babelfish, which is a kind of real-time translator. It's a fish the hitchhiker through the galaxy carried in his ear canal, and it was translating simultaneously every language which was found through the galaxy, so he could talk to every alien without hesitation. And if I think about something like this here, a smartphone, and see how the technology evolves each year, how the processors are getting faster, I could envision in a couple of years when we talk to each other, speaking different languages, not all standardizing on English, we put that in the middle between of us, we have a simultaneous translation, and it would be even easier to communicate.
The first thing I want to say is that things are not invented. New devices, new gadgets are not invented. They're assembled from existing technologies. So for example, look at the iPod, an iconic device. I was about to say revolutionary device, but it wasn't a revolutionary device. It was an iconic device. One of the reasons it wasn't revolutionary is there were already 2 or 3 media players out there before Steve Jobs came around with the iPad. But what made these media devices possible? Compression technology, screen technology, better batteries, and better storage. So what the early creators, inventors of digital music players did is they looked around and they saw all of these underlying technologies and creatively thought about what they could do with it. That's what Rio did. That's what some of the very early pioneers did. What did Steve Jobs do? He looked at them and he said, wait a minute, I can do it better. I can create a much better interface. I can create a much better software ecosystem. I can create a content delivery system. So what he really invented was not the iPod, was iTunes. And that's what made the iPod an interesting product. And then if you go forward to all of the other inventions since the iPod, they're all evolutionary. Apple gets a lot of credit. The iPhone, what did he do? He took a BlackBerry and an iPad, merged them together, added a little Macintosh PC action there, and came out with a pocket computer, which was programmable, and then we had the app revolution. No invention there, just simply taking existing technologies and making them better. Every single device we've seen pretty much over the last 20 years has been a variation of that theme. Even if you go back to the personal computer, the homebrew clubs, it was an evolutionary process where they looked at the mainframes and the minis and figured out a way to make them smaller and better, and then created a revolution. What was the most important thing that Steve Wozniak put into the Apple II? Empty slots. The empty slots in the Apple II is what made that computer sing and dance and do amazing things. Apple didn't build the cards that went into those slots. Other companies did. And I would say the most amazing thing about the iPhone is the ability to do apps. And of course, Google following through with the Android system and all of the tablets and everything that evolved from there.
Okay, but we're still talking a lot about history.
I know.
Most people in this room know the history.
Right.
We need to get to what's the next big thing, Larry.
That's exactly where I'm going. The next big thing,
Eventually.
the next big thing is not the gadget. It's the interface between the human being and the gadget. And it's the trust between the human being and the ecosystem around which that gadget operates. I really don't see any revolutions in gadgets over the next few years. I see the evolution that everybody's been talking about, but what I do see is a much better way to interface with them. Siri is a down payment on what we have in store for us. The fact that Siri at least hints at the notion of the ability to talk to a machine and have it talk back to you. But that is definitely the direction we're going at, where we will have ways to interact with our machines without having to type in them, without having to look at them. And I would go beyond talk. I would go beyond voice. I think that we're going to be seeing machines that anticipate what it is we want them to do and simply do them based on our habits, based on our patterns, based on where we are, based on what we're doing, based on where we're going, based on how fast we're moving, based on who's in the room or the car with us. And that will be the next big thing, is software that takes advantage, and that's why I give you a little history lesson. Of all of the existing technologies that are out there, location, fast processor, cloud connectivity, and enables these devices to do what we want them to do without us actually even having to tell them what to do. There's some scary thoughts on that, right? You get into the car and you want to turn left, it decides to turn right. So you need to have man-machine interfaces that man is capable of overriding. But nevertheless, I do think that the anticipation is going to be the next thing.
So I think we'll have a big or dramatic change in the user interface technology. So some of the people already mentioned in this stage about Google glasses and also Microsoft Kinect motion or gesture recognition technology. So at this point, you have to use your fingers to control your device like an iPad or smartphones. But probably in years, probably 5 years or 7 years ahead, maybe you don't have to use any such devices. You can control everything just by using your body. So in Japan, or even Samsung is now releasing a new version of Galaxy, which is S4. That smartphone will have eye tracking technology. So you don't have to use your hand. If you look at the device, the movie starts automatically. And if you see something else, the movie stops automatically. So you can control all the devices using your own body.
I think that the real improvement will come from a new kind of technology like bending screens. I think that if we see what happened in the last years, we had big computers, then laptop, then iPad, then things like iPhone, and is a tendency to have smaller and smaller devices and screens. The next step, the next step, will have it will be to have screens that we can bend or roll up,
whether it be a smartphone or a tablet or otherwise.
That will be really interesting, because now if we all in this room, all of us in this room have mobiles and, for example, iPads to write articles while we were watching what we are seeing. But now that we have to go outside in the city, we have to go to the room and let them back. If we had folding ability in the screens, we can fold and take it around with us. And this helps in anything, even for a house automation. If we have something that is cheaper and more mobile than we are using now, it will be the next step in this trend of getting things very small.
People have to feel comfortable with the technology that we have. And by comfort, I mean they have to be cool about their privacy, their security, and their safety. And there has to be some kind of a true addressing of the issue. It's getting worse, not better. Technology keeps getting better, but people are getting more and more afraid of it. And somehow somebody has to really figure out a way that we can feel secure about our technology, that it's not invading our privacy, that it's not going to be taken over by aliens and do us more harm than good. Until that day comes about, I think we still are in a very kind of Wild West period.
Archie, do you think people are getting afraid of technology more and more?
Well, if you look at Facebook, people are giving freely away with their personal data. And I read an interesting article where somebody proposed that was all a big plan by the US government after 9/11. So Facebook was founded to make people freely give away every kind of information, which was...
As a member of the CIA, I can assure you that that's not the case.
Actually, the person who first pointed this concept was Bill Gates. So he came up with a new concept called the information at your fingertip, which was announced in 1992 or 93. So he was not the person who did the real thing, but he was the first person. So usually it takes 15, 20 years to implement the technology or concept into the products.
Well, I think that in the last years, the people with, thanks to interfaces like iPad, that are much simpler than PC, for example, are less afraid of technology. Maybe they don't understand. It's like Harry Potter. You see something happens, you don't know bother why. As a user, don't bother why. When I enter home, the lights comes up because I have domotics and so. The people don't feel the technology at all. Now they are getting, even in Italy, grandparents, for example, are getting understanding how the iPhone basic use. So they can use the iPhone even if they don't fully understand its potential.
It is not the technology people fear, it's the misuse of it. I think that is a pervasive attitude of every survey I read. If you look at what the governments are doing, especially in Europe, but also in the United States, there's a huge amount of concern about trying to regulate this technology or the technologists. So I do think there's a pervasive, overwhelming concern. That's not stopping people from using the technology, but I do contend that that has to be addressed going forward, at least if we're going to live in a regulatory environment where governments are going to intervene.
Sometimes they invent something that has no use. For example, now
Yes, 20,000 new products a year seem to be
I'm saying, for
invented
example,
out.
now we are all excited about the 4K TV, but at the moment there are no content. So the problem is sometimes the industry does think that there is no need from the people. Samsung, for example, did the evolution kit. That is a good idea to create something that can be upgraded like a PC. But at the moment, if somebody spends 10,000 euros to buy a 4K TV, it doesn't use for nothing, because the upscaling of a Blu-ray is very good, but it doesn't have a reason to buy a.
Well, the only reason would be to make your neighbors jealous.
Yes.
And that serves a purpose. Right, with the big box out of the trash pile.
Yes.
Holy cow, look what they got.
Absolutely not true. I think that there are incredible inventions to come that we just simply cannot imagine because they haven't been invented yet. But there's going to be an incredible amount of development. I just think that the gadgets that we have will be assembled from whatever those inventions are.